So here we have a pretty typical scene depicted in this statue. You got a girl with her high heels, probably after a hard night partying. She's decided to take them off walking barefoot on the street. Actually, this is something that I think we see a lot in the West, in like Ireland, where I'm from, the United Kingdom, and the US. They're typically the countries I've seen, and not actually here in Eastern Europe, in Chisinau, in Moldova. So I'm kind of curious why they picked that as a theme, but this is a lot more common theme from Eastern Europe. We got a guy waiting, look at his, look at his watch, waiting for the girl to show up, and a bouquet of flowers there waiting for her. So why am I here showing you these statues? Because now I'm going to react to a video from another YouTuber who basically is very skeptical about going out at night to bars and clubs. It's probably because of his own poor experiences back in the West. He's a young YouTuber, Sam Wheatley, goes by the name of Wheat Waffles. And basically I'm going to go through 5 objections that I hear from guys who don't believe in going out and socializing at night. He's a black pill guy, which means basically he thinks the whole dating scene is about your looks and your height, and if you don't have those, then you don't have any chance. It's kind of this very negative, defeatist attitude, in my opinion. And I often see a lot of objections to going out at night. You don't meet good girls at clubs, blah, blah, blah. Clubs are noisy. It's basically from guys who probably don't have any success at night because they don't know what they're doing when they go out at night. In my experience, I've been here in Eastern Europe and coaching guys, having clients here, hanging out with friends for over a decade. I would say that after social circle, going out and socializing is the second best way to meet beautiful, great women here in Eastern Europe. Now, it might be a bit different in the West, and I'll get into that as I react. But yeah, let's go and react to his video and see what are the reasons that you should be hitting the bars and clubs at night here in Eastern Europe. Let's go.
SAR experience.
So the first objection that I'm going to get into that Sam Wheatley, aka Wheat Waffles, brings up is the type of women or the quality of women that you meet if you go out and socialize. It's not in chronological order in his video, but I'll drop a link to his full video down below in the description. So let's see what he says.
The more I go to nightclubs, the more I see a large proportion of the women there are overweight, have way too much makeup on, and still overestimate their attractiveness.
I think that's just a societal issue in the UK. I mean, here in Eastern Europe, there's almost no obesity. It's extremely rare for women under 35 to be overweight. So this phenomenon is more, I wouldn't even say it's limited to being a Western phenomenon. They're just, you know, there are countries that are not in the West where people are fat as well. And yeah, I haven't been in the UK for a couple of years, but when I was back in Ireland, which is pretty similar in terms of overweightness and obesity as the UK, yeah, this is what you see. But you're not going to find these women anywhere in Eastern Europe, never mind in a nightclub. So it's kind of basically a non-issue if you're here in Eastern Europe.
Out of everyone I know, I've never met people that neglect their bodies more than those in the nightclub scene. Heavy drinking is one of the main causes of weight gain. So it's likely the women you meet in clubs are going to be, on average, packing extra pounds.
I can't really speak to the UK, where it's just like a major issue in general. Women who go to nightclubs in Eastern Europe, are they heavier than the girls on average? No, because it attracts just a cross-section of society. I don't know what kind of nightclubs he goes to. The last few times I was out clubbing in the UK was in London, in really nice places, exclusive clubs, and yeah, the women were not fat. So yeah, I think it's just more a bias in terms of selection of places that both of us go to. I mean, I'm not going to go to a place where everybody's overweight.
And in order to compensate for this, a lot of women pile on the makeup, which doesn't actually make a difference, but from their perspective, given the insane amount of attention they're getting from guys in the club, it's easy to see why they massively overestimate their beauty.
Yeah, of course they're getting attention from the guys at the club. But why are they overestimating their value in the sense that they are getting that attention at the time? Kind of makes sense to me that it just sounds a little bit like sour grapes already. They overestimate their value, i.e. they're probably not interested in Wheat Waffles at the club.
As for undamaged, club culture is also tightly correlated with promiscuity and illicit substance use, which most guys will consider the opposite of good qualities for a woman to have.
So then the other things he says, that they're promiscuous and they're basically druggies, they're all taking narcotics. Well, I personally don't take narcotics, so yeah, I'm probably not going to have much in common with the girls who do and not hang out with them. That's just my preference not to. Yeah, our girls who go to clubs in Eastern Europe are more likely to take narcotics. I think it depends on the scene. I think if you're going to a very hardcore trance music rave, then probably more likely people are going to be taking narcotics there. But that's not just in East Europe, that's just about everywhere. And if you're at the swanky cocktail bar in the center of a big Eastern European capital, I don't see why there's any reason to think that they're all going to be on cocaine. Some might not. Not really sure why he brings that up. So are they more promiscuous if they're at a club? Well, they're definitely more interested in meeting a guy if they went to the club in the first place on average. So more likely to be interested in hooking up, more interested in having more sexual partners. Probably, but again, not necessarily. So in my experience here in Eastern Europe, when I go out with my clients, I bring them to the best places with the most attractive women. There are no obese women. There is strong face control in Eastern Europe in general for both guys and in particular for women. If a woman is not dressed appropriately for the club, like the photo he brings up of this obese, I assume British girl in some very unflattering white top, she would not pass face control. At any of the places that we go to here in Eastern Europe, you have to dress stylishly in order to get in. And just like for the guys, like for you, you gotta fit in with what the look that the club is aiming for. So for guys, for example, here in Chisinau, there is one really popular club, I would say exclusive club, especially during the winter. And if you're a guy who shows up without a table there, without proper dress code for the club, then you have zero chance of getting in. And in fact, to get a table, you basically have to know them. So the chance of getting in without basically being known are pretty slim because it's an exclusive place as a guy. And definitely if you're not dressed appropriately for the club in terms of their dress code, zero chance. That's part of the key. I think one of the big differences I see with this objection that he's raising, Wheat Waffles, is that he goes to places, clearly in the UK, that are not attracting beautiful women. If that's what he's encountering, if that's what he's, competing for at the club. And as a result, he just labels all girls who go to clubs in this particular way, probably because he's never been to a high-end club in London where, it's a different clientele. So there are a few different types you're going to meet if you go out here in Eastern Europe, I would say, if we were to try and classify the type of women. And first of all, I should also say that there's been a transition, I think, away from the discotheque, the nightclub, especially amongst trendy, very good-looking, stylish, connected women. I think they go more nowadays for upscale cocktail bars than necessarily for a club. But in general, there are a few different types. I think one is maybe in the direction that he's describing, which is girls that go out habitually, take narcotics, hook up with lots of guys, probably in part to get the narcotics. You definitely have some of those. But then you also have just girls who are recently single and they're not so interested in focusing on dating apps or their social circle, looking for different options, and going out and socializing at night, probably with a girlfriend or two, is a good way to get to meet the kind of local guys that they're interested in. They go to the upscale cocktail bar, they go to the club because they're invited probably to a table there by some high value guy who's from the city, and that's just a good way for them to meet new guys. There's a little bit of screening, there has to be face control to get in to these places, so that is a second stereotype that I think you see. And the other one is just girls who go to a birthday party, and it's really popular here for girls to take a table at a top club. Maybe there's going to be 10 of them, and they all go out. Not all of them are single. It's their friend's birthday, but you know, they're there and maybe they never go to a nightclub. I've often met girls who go just once or twice a year, and then you meet them at the club because, yeah, they're there for a birthday party. And then all of these stereotypes he's talking about just don't apply to these girls at all. So again, it is a mix of people that you're going to meet, but the thing to focus on is the type of establishment that you go and you socialize at night. Like if you're going to go to a really bargain basement club, and this guy's a student, so I understand he probably doesn't have the financial resources or the gravitas in terms of age and status to probably get into those clubs like the ones I talk about in London. But if you're going to hang out there, then don't be surprised, it's not going to be the best quality. Obviously, you can contrast that with coming to a top club, either the very, very elite clubs in the West or here in Eastern Europe, and it's going to be a completely different experience. So let's get on to the second point he raises.
In the UK, where I'm from, we have this term called beer goggles, which is basically when guys make the mistake of thinking women are way more attractive than they actually are after drinking a significant amount of alcohol. Additionally, add on top the facts that in a nightclub, the lighting is low, making it hard to see people's faces.
All right, so let's deal with the first thing, the beer goggles. Right, well, the first thing is don't drink too much. Right? Maybe easier said than done for some people. I've been guilty of that in the past at times. My own personal experience, yeah, beer goggles, you kind of have to, I guess, be able to discern. He's also talking about the low lighting and the fact that girls are probably in heels, wearing more makeup than normal because of the lighting. You got to be able to take those into account. I think that comes with maturity rather than necessarily just the alcohol.
I have zero sympathy for guys who complain about this happening to them. Because if I'm honest, the problem isn't the woman. Rather, the problem is the environment.
I also have zero sympathy for those kind of guys. I have to say it all the time I've been here in Eastern Europe 15 years. I have never had this experience. I've never woken up and felt disgusted. Actually, if I do have the beer goggles on, I apparently only talk to the brightest thing in the room, which is probably the hottest girl. So yeah, if anything, I just get a pleasant surprise in the morning. But yeah, this is just about a little bit more, I think, of experience and discernment and not drinking too much.
Going to nightclubs requires two things. One, drinking lots of alcohol, because let's be honest, if you're not drinking, you're not going to be having a good time.
This is absolute rubbish. I often have clients or friends who come and party with me here in Eastern Europe, and they don't drink alcohol at all. No one forces you to drink alcohol at a club. You can just order something non-alcoholic. And if you are self-conscious about the fact that you're not drinking, just have a virgin mojito or a sparkling water with a lemon in it. People are not going to know the difference between that and a gin tonic in reality. So you are not compelled to drink alcohol when you go out and socialize. That's a personal choice. So saying that you have to is basically a reflection on the fact he feels that he has to drink. So when I first came to Eastern Europe, like over 10 years ago, I thought that in order to be a real man, nastoashi mujik, that you had to drink copious amounts of alcohol. And I've been in those situations where you're slamming shots at the sauna with a group of dudes and a group of girls. And then you end up completely sloshed. But you're not actually compelled to do that. It's not really a big deal. You can be a teetotaler and go out and party and have a good time, but you gotta like the environment of in a club, feel comfortable, and I think that's more important.
Nightclubs are the second most superficial environment, carrying a looks importance of 90%. Here's some truths about the importance of looks in nightclubs. 1. Women get approached non-stop. This means they can afford to have far higher look standards. 2. Everyone is standing up, so height differences become even more noticeable.
I have to stop there. This guy must be so annoying if you go out and try and socialize. So women get approached non-stop. So what? They look for the guys that have the best look. Now, even in a nightclub, it's not going to be just about how handsome you are. There's lots of other things playing into that like your energy, your ability to communicate. It doesn't matter the music's so loud, you're just going to communicate in a different way. You're not going to start discussing probably philosophy if you're on a dance floor listening to some cool electronic DJ play. Goodness sake. But you should have a table at the club, and then you can invite girls you meet to sit there, and then you can have a better conversation that's easily solved. And then the height thing, yeah, maybe everybody's standing up. Well, at times they're standing up, at times they're at a table.
The very fact nightclubs are a cold approach automatically means the importance of looks will be high.
Yeah, you've got to be able to demonstrate your value. I have another video about that, how, the two most important elements, which are basically going to the right places, having access, which would be the top club, and then being able to demonstrate your value. It's harder. I empathize with a guy who's a student, who comes across pretty insecure. He's probably going to find it hard. Like he says, insult if a sub-5 approaches her. He's probably talking about himself there. Yeah, but all these things can be overcome. These are just limiting mindsets. If you work on yourself, first of all, work on your value and then work on demonstrating it. And when I say value, that's just a mixture of, like, for sure, your looks, how handsome you are, your wealth, your status, and then most importantly, what's commonly known as game, in inverted commas, which is basically your intercommunicative skills, right? How you present yourself, how you interact, and all that you can learn. All right, next point, he talks about aggression at the clubs.
In my opinion, a nightclub is the most hostile environment you'll encounter with other guys on a regular basis. The problem with nightclubs is there's so many drunk guys in such a small space that occasional aggro is a part of it. I've been in clubs and I've found men get hostile for the smallest and most petty things. You bump his shoulder, he bumps you back with more force.
I'm not sure where this guy hangs out, Wheat Waffles, but you need to start going to different clubs. In London, when I went to nice places, people weren't trying to pick fights with me. Now, I know there's definitely a cultural difference, even though people imagine, if they've never been here in Eastern Europe, that everybody wants to pick a fight with you. They're aggressive and tough guys just looking for a little bit of aggro. So in 15 years here of hanging out in Eastern Europe, I have only ever had one issue in a nightclub, and that was because the girl I was with was still married, it turned out. She was separated from her husband, and her husband's friends were there, and it almost ended up in a bit of a fight. In the end, they backed down and it was all okay. But other than that one issue, never had a problem. I understand that in the UK, having been there quite a bit, that it's more common to get aggressive guys at the club, or guys at the bars and clubs are in general. There's a drinking culture, there's kind of a violence after drinking phenomenon. But in Eastern Europe, that's less of an issue in my experience, and really it depends on the type of places you go to. Final point that he says, it's about unfulfilling sex. Well, I'm not really surprised for this guy.
In my opinion, nightclub flings are one of the most unfulfilling forms of intimacy possible. In fact, I believe the only thing more unfulfilling is by paying for it directly.
I'd love to know how many women he's actually slept with in general, and how many he met at a nightclub, because it's probably in one hand.
Firstly, on the physical side, I want to point out that when you actually get to the point of doing it, since you've been intoxicated by alcohol, there is a much greater chance of complications occurring in the bedroom.
There's an easy solution for that, just don't drink too much.
And second, which is the more important point, is the lack of emotional fulfillment. It's interesting because just about every content creator I've seen talk about their quote-unquote PUA phase, they've all said that this part of their life brought them the least satisfaction, least happiness, least fulfillment, and for the most part, it was a complete waste of time. This is in conjunction with my own experiences too.
Yeah, but the problem is here, he doesn't really have too many reference experience. That's clear. He's a young British guy in his 20s and goes to terrible clubs and really has, it appears, pretty low standards. So he needs to wait at least 10 years and things will get better and move to Eastern Europe. And just to be clear, like, I have clients who hang out partly in the West as well as here in Eastern Europe, and they hang out in the same social circles as with the same super hotties that you're going to see Leonardo DiCaprio with. As you know, Leo's Law, he tends to have a new girl under 25, some model between 18 and 25 every couple of years. When they get to 25, he suddenly switches them. But if you go out to the right places and you're in the right social circles in the West, whether it's New York, London, Paris, Milan, especially in Milan, because there's a lot of models there, and these are places that I haven't spent so much time in the last decade because I've been here in Eastern Europe, but previously that was also the scene that I had a certain amount of access to. Then you can date some of the most beautiful women in the world. And yes, you will meet them out clubbing. My experience with going out and meeting women in clubs, yeah, sometimes you will get the kind of proverbial one-night stand. Is it fulfilling? Some of them have been, some have been less so, some led to relationships. Some of the girls, most cases I didn't sleep with them straight out of the club. I met them, took their contacts, then we communicated a little bit, was able to demonstrate value and then meet them and then develop something with them afterwards. I just think this Wheat Waffles just has too few reference experiences. Unfortunately, they are pretty poor reference experiences, it looks like. Obviously, if you're super drunk, then probably the sexual experience is something you're not going to remember even. So just don't get hammered at the club. Just don't be unconsciously drunk.
I believe right now there is this stigma that if you're a guy who doesn't go out regularly, takes women back to their place and lives like James Bond, then you're a loser.
Wheat Waffles, what's wrong with being James Bond?
It personally took me 2 times to realise that one-night stands are unfulfilling.
He had 2 reference experiences. Wow. That's a great data set.
When I was 18.
When he was 18. Before university.
And what's more is before this, I spent years being down in the dumps and envious of guys that were in the game and able to do it so regularly. Then, it wasn't until I actually had the experiences myself, I realised I wasn't really missing out on anything. Call me blue-pilled all you like, but I believe only long-term relationships build lasting satisfaction.
Yeah, but you can meet those women to start those relationships in a bar, in a nightclub, and you can sleep with them on the first night, the first time you meet them, and it may lead to relationships. Some other cultures, I think it's less common here in Eastern Europe. I think girls in general are less into the one-night stand culture, a little bit more prudish, I would say, than in other parts of Europe, especially in Western Europe and say Scandinavia. I've been to Iceland a few times where they almost want to have sex first before they decide if they want to take you seriously or not. So it's just another way of doing things. It doesn't really matter that much. If you meet her and the vibe goes well, and you sleep together the first night, perfect. Maybe it's going to take a bit more time. Maybe you're going to go out, hang out 20 times before something happens. It's kind of basically irrelevant. Just don't be really drunk. I think that's the main thing. And yeah, he's a guy who's under 18. He doesn't have experience. He has low value relative to be able to demonstrate. And he clearly doesn't seem to have much ability to do that. He doesn't seem to like the environment of clubs. Just pretty defeatist from what I can say. And really at the end of the day, he needs to do a few things. One, mature and develop some more value, basically get older. That just takes a little bit of time. Again, guys in general, we peak between 35 and 45 in terms of our value on the dating scene. And number 2, he needs to stop going to such low quality places in the UK even. He needs to figure out how to get to the better places in England and figure out how to develop a social circle that's higher level. And 3, he needs to spend time in Eastern Europe, because here, like I mentioned, my client who is in the same circles and can date the same models basically as Leonardo DiCaprio. The barriers to entry to living that kind of James Bond lifestyle, they're significantly lower here in Eastern Europe. That doesn't mean that it's like shooting fish in a barrel. Like, you still need to be able to demonstrate value. You need to know where to go. You need to know how to behave and communicate that value here in Eastern Europe. But it is so much easier because that lower barrier to entry. Anyways, that is what I've got to say about Wheat Waffles. Very uninspiring name. I understand it comes from his surname, Wheatley. But yeah, a bit of a Weetabix, it seems. So now you have a better idea about why I have centered the Zara experience, in-person experience here in Eastern Europe on the nightlife. It also combines access to my social circle in Eastern Europe. And to be really candid, if someone like Wheat Waffles were to apply in the application form that's down below in the video description, we wouldn't be actually going together on this experience, because he needs a lot of work and to dismiss a lot of limiting beliefs. In my opinion, he wouldn't be a good fit for this experience. He'd probably be boring as hell, complaining, moaning, defeatist about his looks, and that mindset isn't going to help you excel really anywhere on the dating scene, and definitely not in Eastern Europe, because you need to be the real man here. Nastorashi mujik, and that is something that Wheat Waffles, in my opinion, needs to work on a good bit more before he would be suitable out here. But perhaps you are already with the right mindset to come here to Eastern Europe and live it large on an unforgettable weekend with me. And what are you doing next weekend? Because it could be you. I'm actually here in Chisinau waiting on a client, and we are going to have an incredible time partying here with the beauties of Eastern Europe, the 9s and 10s. So down below is an application form to this experience. It is by application only because, as you can probably understand, I vet all potential clients, and if they're not a good fit, they're not a good fit, and that's just life. They can work on themselves and then come back in another stage. So before you apply, there are 2 playlists I want you to look at. First one, it's gonna be up in the card down below in the description, is giving you a good sample of the cities that we live this our experience on together here in Eastern Europe, because it is the time of the Russo-Ukrainian war when I'm shooting this video, so I am not currently going with clients to Russia, Belarus, or Ukraine. And over the last 6 months in particular, I've been partying with my clients, meeting the beautiful women of Eastern Europe in Almaty in Kazakhstan, here in Chisinau in Moldova, and also in the Baltics in Riga. Absolutely fantastic place to go out in, and also in Warsaw in Poland. There is a second playlist which will give you my dating tips on meeting and dating the 9s and 10s, the super beautiful of Eastern Europe. You can also go and check that out so you get a better idea of the mentality, a good few tips and advice there as well. Like an ambulance passing us by in this park in the center of Chisinau. And in summary, I'd say if you are looking for an experience that I suspect someone like Wheat Waffles will get if he came here to Eastern Europe, which is that you probably go to a very touristic place, some bar maybe in the old town of Riga, or not actually even sure here. There's no real old town in Chisinau, but anyways, you go to the most obvious touristic place, probably have, there's an expat pub, and I say expat, it's actually just foreign tourist pub over this direction, and there you can probably get a liter of beer, eat some 200 gram, 300 gram steak, and it's not where the beautiful hang out in Eastern Europe in Chisinau, and you'd have that tourist experience, and it'd be probably pretty unfulfilling. If that's what you're looking for, then obviously the Czar experience is not for you. You can get that pretty easily everywhere in Eastern Europe. So if you're looking for the insider, as one of my former clients called me after a trip here in Chisinau in Moldova, also after Riga, my client who went with me there, he called me the special forces for Eastern Europe. Basically, if you want that accelerated inside experience, will save you, probably the 10 years like I did hanging out here to figure all this stuff out, then the Czar experience is for you potentially, and down below is an application form. So look forward to reading your application very soon. And on that note, I'll bid you a la revedere o sarò bună from Chisinau, Moldova.
Czar Experience.